The assignment. Lieutenant J. Kim's boots echoed softly against the metal deck plates as he walked through the pristine corridors of the research vessel Harmony's Edge. The white walls gleamed under the soft LED strips that ran along the ceiling, casting everything in a sterile, clinical light. He had been aboard this ship for 2 months now, but today felt different. Today, Captain Naley had summoned him for what she called a special assignment. The captain waited for him in the main briefing room, her tall frame silhouetted against the massive viewport that showed the endless tapestry of stars. Her short black hair was pulled back in its usual severe style, and her dark eyes held that familiar intensity that had earned her command of one of the Galactic Council's most advanced research vessels. "Sit down, Jay," she said without turning from the window. Her voice carried the calm authority of someone who had spent decades in deep space. Jay took the chair across from her desk, noting how the room seemed to hum with the ship's engines. Through the viewport, he could see the stars slowly shifting as they traveled through the void, farther from Earth than he had ever been. Captain Naley finally turned to face him, her expression grave. "I have a special assignment for you, Lieutenant. Something that requires unique qualifications." She touched her tablet, and the wall screen flickered to life. Jay felt his breath catch in his throat. The image showed a creature that seemed to have crawled out of humanity's darkest nightmares. It stood 15 feet tall, its obsidian skin seeming to absorb light rather than reflect it. Burning red eyes glowed from a face that was almost humanoid but wrong in ways that made Jay's mind recoil. Long, powerful arms ended in claws that could easily tear through metal, and despite being obviously confined, it radiated an aura of barely contained violence. "What is it?" Jay asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "The other races call it the Devourer," Captain Naley replied, her tone clinical. 3 mining colonies have been completely destroyed by this creature. The Galactic Council managed to capture it 2 weeks ago, and now it's here, on our ship. Jay stared at the image, noting how the creature's posture suggested intelligence behind those burning eyes. "Why is it here?" "The Council wants to study it. They need to understand what it is, why it attacks, and most importantly, how to stop others like it." Captain Naley paused the display. "But there's a problem." She stood and walked to the viewport, her hands clasped behind her back. "None of the alien crew members can get close to it. The Vorax scientists tried to study it, but they can only remain in its presence for minutes at a time. The Zeleni guards have the same problem. They all report the same thing, an overwhelming sense of terror that goes beyond normal fear. It reaches into their minds and fills them with such dread that they become physically ill." Jay waited, sensing where this was leading. "But humans are different," Captain Naley continued, turning back to face him. "Dr. Park tested this theory yesterday. He approached the creature's containment cell and while he felt afraid, he could think clearly. He didn't experience the paralyzing terror that affects our alien colleagues." "So you want me to watch it," Jay said. "Yes. You'll be stationed outside its containment area for 8-hour shifts. You'll observe everything it does, document its behavior, and report any changes immediately." Captain Naley leaned forward, her expression serious. "This is important work, Jay. The Council needs to know if this creature is truly evil, or if there's something else at play here." Jay considered the assignment. It sounded dangerous, but also crucial. "How long will I be doing this?" "Every day, 8 hours at a time. Dr. Park will occasionally take shifts, but you'll be the primary observer." Her face softened slightly. "I won't lie to you, this creature has killed many people. But it's contained behind multiple energy barriers. You'll be safe." Jay nodded slowly. Despite the danger, he felt a strange pull toward the assignment. "I'll do it." For the first time since he'd entered the room, Captain Naley smiled. "Good. Dr. Park will show you the containment area. You start tomorrow." As Jay left the briefing room, he couldn't shake the image of those burning red eyes from his mind. Something about the creature intrigued him beyond the obvious danger. Perhaps it was the intelligence he'd glimpsed in its gaze, or maybe it was simply the mystery of what could drive such a powerful being to destroy entire colonies. Whatever the reason, Jay found himself looking forward to tomorrow's shift with a mixture of anticipation and curiosity that surprised him. First contact. That night, Jay lay in his narrow bunk staring at the ceiling, unable to find sleep. Questions swirled through his mind like debris in a solar storm. Why had the creature destroyed those colonies? What made it so terrifying to other species while leaving humans relatively unaffected? And most puzzling of all, what was the look he'd seen in its eyes? Was it really the cold calculation of a predator, or something else entirely? The next morning, Dr. Park met him outside his quarters. The older man was one of only 5 humans aboard the Harmony's Edge, and his expertise in xenobiology had made him invaluable to the research mission. Ready for this? Dr. Park asked as they walked toward the elevator that would take them deep into the ship's lower levels. As ready as I can be, Jay replied. What should I expect? Dr. Park was quiet for a moment as they entered the elevator. It's unsettling. Not in the way it affects the others, you won't feel that paralyzing fear. But there's something about it that makes you think. Something that suggests we might not understand what we're dealing with. The elevator descended into the ship's security section, where the corridors were noticeably different. Thicker walls, reinforced blast doors, and red warning lights that cast everything in an ominous glow. This was where the most dangerous specimens were kept, far from the rest of the crew. The creature is contained behind 3 separate energy barriers, Dr. Park explained as they walked. The first is relatively weak, designed to slow it down if something goes wrong. The second is much stronger. The third could stop a battleship's main gun. They stopped at a heavy security door marked with warnings in a dozen languages. Dr. Park placed his hand on the scanner, and the door hissed open to reveal the observation chamber. The room was divided into 2 sections. On one side were monitoring stations with chairs and computer terminals for the observers. On the other side was a reinforced transparent aluminum wall that provided a clear view into the containment cell beyond. And there it was. Seeing the creature in person was entirely different from viewing its image. It sat in the center of the large containment cell like a living shadow, its obsidian skin seeming to absorb the harsh overhead lights. Those burning red eyes moved slowly, taking in its surroundings with what looked like careful intelligence. Occasionally it would tilt its massive head or shift its powerful arms, but mostly it simply sat and observed. It doesn't do much, Dr. Park said quietly. Just sits and watches. But sometimes I get the feeling it's thinking about something very important. As if sensing their presence, the creature turned its head toward the observation window. For a moment, its red eyes met Jay's through the transparent barrier. Jay had expected to feel afraid, had braced himself for some primal terror to overwhelm his rational mind. Instead, he felt something unexpected, curiosity. When do I start? Jay asked. Dr. Park checked his chronometer. Now, if you're ready. I'll stay with you for the first hour, then you'll be on your own. Jay settled into the chair closest to the window. The creature was still looking at him, its gaze unwavering and strangely intelligent. Hello, Jay said softly, even though he knew the soundproof barrier prevented any communication. The creature tilted its head slightly, as if it had somehow heard him. And so Jay's watch began. Days passed in a rhythm of observation and documentation. Every morning, Jay would take his position in the observation chair, settling in for his 8-hour shift with the galaxy's most dangerous prisoner. The other crew members thought he was insane. How can you sit so close to that thing? Asked Yubin, the ship's human technician. She had tried to observe the creature once, but after 10 minutes she'd fled the room, her hands shaking and her face pale. It makes me feel like something terrible is about to happen. But Jay felt different. The longer he spent observing the creature, the more his initial curiosity grew into something approaching fascination. While the alien scientists were forced to observe from a distance using cameras and remote sensors, Jay could sit mere meters away from one of the galaxy's greatest mysteries. Dr. Park visited him daily, always asking the same question, "Do you see anything new?" At first, Jay's answer was always no. The creature seemed to do little more than sit, breathe, and observe its surroundings. But as the first week passed, Jay began to notice subtleties that the distant monitoring equipment couldn't detect. "Its breathing changes," Jay reported to Dr. Park one afternoon. "What do you mean?" "During ship's day cycle, it breathes faster. During night cycle, it breathes slower. Like it knows what time it is, even without any natural light cues." Dr. Park looked intrigued. This was the kind of behavioral detail that the alien scientists, constrained by their fear, had been unable to observe. By the second week, Jay had noticed something else. "It watches the stars," he told Dr. Park. "Explain." Jay pointed to the small viewport in the creature's cell, through which the stars were visible as they slowly moved past the traveling ship. "It follows them with its eyes. When a particularly bright star comes into view, it turns its head to track it. And when the star moves out of sight." Jay paused, uncertain how to describe what he'd observed. "What?" "It looks sad. Its shoulders drop, its head tilts down. Like it misses the star." This revelation excited Dr. Park immensely. He shared the observation with the alien scientists, but when they tried to verify it, they couldn't remain in the creature's presence long enough to see the pattern for themselves. "Only humans can properly observe it," Dr. Park concluded. "You're doing important work, Jay. More important than you might realize." The third week began like all the others. Jay took his position, the creature sat in its cell, and the routine of observation continued. But on Wednesday, something changed. Jay was writing notes on his tablet, documenting how the creature sometimes moved its hands as if trying to touch something that wasn't there, when he heard a voice. "Why do you not run away, small one?" Jay looked up sharply. The observation room was empty. Dr. Park had left an hour earlier. But the voice had been clear, speaking directly into his mind rather than through his ears. He looked at the creature, which was staring directly at him with those burning red eyes, more focused and alert than he had ever seen it. "Did you just speak to me?" Jay asked aloud. "You heard me," the voice replied in his thoughts. "The others cannot hear. They run before I can speak." Jay's heart began racing, but not from fear, from excitement. The galaxy's most dangerous creature could communicate, and it had chosen to speak to him. Understanding. The computers in the observation room suddenly came alive with alarm signals. The alien scientists monitoring through remote cameras had detected something unusual. They could see Jay talking to empty air, gesticulating as if in conversation with someone they couldn't perceive. Within minutes, Dr. Park burst through the security door, followed closely by Captain Naley and two Zellini guards who stayed near the entrance, unwilling to get closer to the creature's containment area. "Jay, what's happening?" Dr. Park demanded, rushing to the observation station. Jay looked up from where he'd been leaning forward toward the transparent barrier, his face flushed with excitement. "It's talking to me, Dr. Park. It can communicate telepathically." Captain Naley stepped forward, though Jay noticed she kept her distance from the window. "Are you certain? Could it be some kind of psychological effect?" "No, listen," Jay said, turning back to the creature. "Can you speak to them too?" The massive being tilted its head, studying the newcomers with those burning red eyes. After a moment, it shook its head slowly. "Only you," came the voice in Jay's mind. "The others' minds are clouded. Their fear creates static I cannot penetrate. It says it can only communicate with me," Jay explained. "The others' fear interferes with the telepathic connection." Dr. Park exchanged a meaningful glance with Captain Naley. "Jay, this is extraordinary. We need to document everything. Can you ask it questions?" Jay nodded and turned back to the creature. "What are you? What's your name?" "I am Kethvar. My people call themselves the Eternal Wanderers. We have traveled between the stars since before your species discovered fire. Its name is Kethvar, Jay relayed. It says its people are called the Eternal Wanderers, and they've been spacefaring for millennia. But I am alone now, Kethvar continued, and Jay could sense a deep sadness in the mental voice. The last of my kind. It's alone, Jay said quietly. The last of its species. Captain Naley leaned forward. Ask it about the colonies. Why did it attack them? Jay hesitated, sensing this was a painful topic, but posed the question anyway. Kethvar's massive frame seemed to slump, and those red eyes dimmed slightly. I was starving. Not for food, for connection. My people fed on the psychic energy of other beings, but we took only what was freely given, only what could be spared. When I found those colonies, I was desperate. I had been alone for so long. It wasn't trying to kill them, Jay said, his voice filled with understanding. It was starving. Its species feeds on psychic energy. It says they normally only take what's freely given, but it had been alone for so long. I tried to be gentle, Kethvar continued, but I was weak, desperate. I took too much too quickly. I did not mean to harm them, but my hunger, it consumed me. When I realized what I had done, the guilt nearly destroyed me. Jay felt tears forming in his eyes as he relayed the creature's words. It didn't mean to kill them. It was trying to be gentle, but its desperation made it take too much energy. It's been carrying the guilt ever since. The room fell silent except for the hum of the ship's systems. Even the Zelini guards at the entrance had stopped their nervous fidgeting. Dr. Park was the first to speak. Jay, ask it what it needs to survive without harming others. Connection, came the immediate response. To share thoughts, memories, experiences with others. You're kind, humans, you give freely without knowing it. When you sit with me, when you show curiosity instead of fear, you share a small part of your psychic energy willingly. It sustains me. It needs connection, Jay explained. Humans naturally share psychic energy when we're curious or empathetic rather than fearful. Just by sitting here, talking with it, I've been helping sustain it. Captain Naley stepped closer to the observation window, though Jay noticed she still maintained her distance. Can it control its hunger now? Could it live among others without harming them? Kethvar's red eyes focused on the captain, and Jay could sense it was trying to project its thoughts to her directly. When that failed, it turned back to Jay. With willing companions, yes. Your species intrigues me. You do not fear me as the others do, and your psychic emanations are nourishing. If I could live among humans, work with them, share knowledge and experiences, I would never hunger again. It says yes, Jay replied. It could live peacefully among humans because we don't fear it the same way other species do, and our natural psychic emanations would be enough to sustain it. Dr. Park was frantically taking notes. This changes everything. Jay, tell it that we want to help. Ask if it would be willing to share its knowledge with us. I have seen the birth and death of stars, Kethvar replied when Jay posed the question. I have witnessed civilizations rise and fall across 1,000 worlds. I know technologies and sciences that could benefit all species. I would gladly share everything, if only I could have companions again. As Jay translated, he could see the excitement building in Dr. Park's eyes, and even Captain Naley's stern expression was softening. Jay, the captain said slowly, ask it if it would be willing to come to Earth. To work with our scientists and researchers as a partner rather than a prisoner. The massive being's eyes brightened at Jay's question, and for the first time since Jay had been observing it, Kethvar stood up. Its full 15-foot height was impressive, but no longer seemed threatening. Instead, it seemed almost hopeful. I would like that very much, it said, and Jay could hear something like joy in the mental voice. To have a home again. To have purpose beyond mere survival. To have friends. It says yes, Jay said, smiling. It would like that very much. As the implications of this breakthrough began to sink in, Jay realized he was witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history, the transformation of the universe's most feared monster into what might become humanity's greatest ally. Trust. The following days brought a flurry of activity aboard the Harmony's Edge. Captain Naley sent encrypted messages to Earth and the Galactic Council, while Dr. Park worked around the clock to document every detail of Jay's communications with Kethvar. The alien crew members remained skeptical and fearful, but even they couldn't deny the remarkable breakthrough that had occurred. Jay found himself spending even more time in the observation room, now serving as both translator and diplomat. Through their conversations, he learned that Kethvar had been wandering the galaxy alone for over 3 centuries, watching his species slowly die out from a plague that had swept through their homeworld. The loneliness had been almost unbearable, driving him to increasingly desperate attempts to find connection with other beings. "I tried to communicate with the Vorak first," Kethvar explained during one of their sessions. "Their minds are highly developed, but their fear of the unknown made them reject my attempts at contact. The Zelini were worse, their warrior culture made them see me only as a threat to be destroyed." "What about other species?" Jay asked. "Surely there were others who might have understood." "I searched for centuries," came the melancholy reply. "Some species fled before I could even attempt communication. Others attacked immediately. A few tried to capture me for study, but when I defended myself, they labeled me a monster. I began to believe that perhaps I truly was what they claimed." Jay felt a deep sadness for the ancient being. "But humans are different." "Yes. Your species has something rare, the ability to feel fear without being consumed by it, to be curious about the unknown rather than simply rejecting it. When you first sat here, I could sense your fear, but underneath it was something else. Wonder. Interest. The desire to understand rather than to judge." The conversation was interrupted by Dr. Park's arrival, accompanied by a small delegation that included Captain Naley and, surprisingly, Counselor Vextran, a high-ranking Vorak official who had been aboard the ship as an observer. "Jay," Captain Naley said, "we've received a response from both Earth and the Galactic Council. They want to speak with Kethvar directly." Jay turned to the massive being. "Representatives from Earth and the Galactic Council want to communicate with you. Are you willing?" "Through you, yes. I understand they must be cautious. I have given them reason to fear me." What followed was the most extraordinary diplomatic session in galactic history. Jay served as the telepathic relay, translating questions and responses between Kethvar and the assembled officials. The conversation ranged from technical discussions about Kethvar's species and their capabilities, to philosophical questions about coexistence and mutual benefit. Counselor Vextran, despite his obvious discomfort at being so close to the creature, asked the most pointed questions. "How can we trust a being that has destroyed 3 colonies? What guarantee do we have that this won't happen again?" "I understand their concern," Kethvar replied when Jay translated the question. "I can offer no guarantees except my word and my desperate desire to never harm another being again. The guilt I carry is worse than any punishment they could devise. But I can prove my sincerity." "How?" Jay asked. "I will lower my mental defenses. I will allow you to see my memories, my thoughts, my true nature. You can then share what you see with the others, so they may judge for themselves." Jay hesitated. "Is that safe? For both of us?" "There is some risk. Our minds will be fully connected. But if you trust me, and I trust you, it should be possible." Jay looked at Dr. Park and Captain Naley. "It's offering to share its memories with me directly, so I can verify its intentions." Dr. Park looked concerned. "Jay, we don't know what that kind of mental connection might do to you." "I want to try," Jay said firmly. "If we're going to ask others to trust Kethvar, we need to know for certain that we can trust it ourselves." After much discussion, the officials agreed to the attempt. Jay positioned himself directly in front of the transparent barrier, his palm pressed against the surface. Kethvar approached from the other side, its massive hand dwarfing Jay's as it too pressed against the barrier. Are you ready? Kethvar asked. Jay nodded. The connection was immediate and overwhelming. Jay felt his consciousness expand beyond his physical body, merging with the ancient mind of the last eternal wanderer. Memories flooded through him, not just Kethvar's experiences, but the collective memories of an entire species that had explored the galaxy for millennia. He saw the eternal wanderer's homeworld, a place of incredible beauty where beings of energy and matter lived in perfect harmony. He witnessed the plague that had slowly consumed his people, the desperate attempts to find a cure, the gradual realization that they were the last of their kind. He felt Kethvar's centuries of loneliness, the slow descent into desperation that had led to the tragic events at the mining colonies. But most importantly, he felt the genuine remorse, the desperate desire for redemption, and the overwhelming hope that perhaps, finally, he had found a species that could understand and accept him. When the connection ended, Jay slumped back in his chair, emotionally drained but certain of what he had experienced. "It's telling the truth," he said, his voice hoarse. "Everything it told us is real. The guilt, the loneliness, the desire to help rather than harm, it's all genuine." Dr. Park leaned forward. "What did you see?" "Everything," Jay replied. "The entire history of its species, the tragedy that led to its isolation, and most importantly, its true nature. The eternal wanderers weren't predators, they were gardeners. They traveled the galaxy helping other species develop, sharing knowledge and wisdom. Kethvar wants to continue that tradition." Counselor Vextran, who had remained skeptical throughout the proceedings, finally spoke. "And you would stake your life on this assessment?" Jay looked at Kethvar, who was watching him with those burning red eyes that no longer seemed threatening, but instead seemed almost grateful. "Yes," Jay said without hesitation. "I would stake my life on it. In fact, I already have." "Thank you," came Kethvar's voice in his mind. "You have given me something I thought was lost forever, trust." "What did it say?" Captain Naley asked. Jay smiled. "It said thank you. It said I've given it something it thought was lost forever." As the session concluded and the officials began making plans for Kethvar's eventual release and integration into human society, Jay realized that his simple assignment to observe a dangerous creature had become something far more significant. He had become the bridge between two species, the first human to truly understand what it meant to have a friend among the stars. New beginnings. 3 months later, Jay stood in the observation deck of the Earth station Prometheus, watching as the transport vessel carrying Kethvar approached the docking bay. The journey from the Harmony's edge to Earth's orbital research facility had been long, but every day had brought new discoveries as Jay continued his role as translator and cultural liaison. During the voyage, Kethvar had shared knowledge that revolutionized human understanding of energy manipulation, stellar navigation, and even basic principles of consciousness itself. In return, Jay had taught the ancient being about human culture, art, and the small joys that made life meaningful beyond mere survival. "I am nervous," Kethvar's voice echoed in Jay's mind as the transport ship settled into the docking bay. "What if the others cannot accept me as you have?" "They will," Jay assured him, speaking aloud as he always did. The habit had become natural, allowing others nearby to follow at least one side of their conversations. "Dr. Sarah Chen is eager to meet you, and the research team has been preparing for weeks." Dr. Chen approached Jay as the docking procedures completed. She was Earth's leading expert in xenopsychology and had been selected to head the integration program. "How is our guest doing, Jay?" "Nervous, but hopeful," Jay replied. "It's been alone for so long that the prospect of meeting new people is both exciting and terrifying." The airlock hissed open, and Dr. Park emerged first, followed by a small escort team. Finally, Kethvar stepped through the doorway, and Jay heard several sharp intakes of breath from the assembled humans. Even knowing what to expect, the creature's imposing presence was startling. But what Jay noticed immediately was the difference in posture. The slumped, defeated bearing that had characterized Kethvar during its imprisonment was gone. Now it stood tall and proud, its red eyes bright with curiosity as it took in its new surroundings. So many minds, Kethvar observed. And so little fear. Your species continues to amaze me. It's impressed by how calm everyone is, Jay translated. It says humans continue to amaze it. Dr. Chen stepped forward, and Jay could sense her nervousness, but also her professional excitement. Please tell Kethvar that we're honored to meet the last representative of such an ancient civilization. When Jay conveyed the message, Kethvar's response surprised everyone. The honor is mine. I had begun to believe that companionship was nothing more than a memory. Now I find myself among people who offer not just tolerance, but genuine welcome. It says the honor is its, Jay translated, and that it had given up hope of ever finding true companionship again. Over the following weeks, Kethvar settled into life at the research station with remarkable ease. A specially designed habitat was constructed with reinforced materials and energy barriers that could be lowered at will, security that everyone understood was more for political reasons than actual necessity. Jay found his role evolving from translator to teacher as Kethvar learned to communicate directly with other humans. While the telepathic connection remained strongest with Jay, the ancient being gradually developed the ability to project simple thoughts and emotions to others who approached with genuine curiosity rather than fear. Dr. Chen became Kethvar's primary research partner, working together to catalog the vast knowledge the Eternal Wanderer possessed. Their collaboration led to breakthrough discoveries in energy physics that promised to revolutionize space travel and planetary engineering. But it was during a quiet evening session that Jay experienced the moment that would stay with him forever. He was sitting in Kethvar's habitat, sharing stories about Earth's diverse cultures, when the ancient being suddenly went very still. Jay, came the mental voice, unusually formal. There is something I must tell you. What is it? Among my people, we had a concept that does not translate well to human language. The closest approximation would be, chosen family. When two beings of different species formed a bond of mutual understanding and protection, they would become something more than friends, more than allies. Jay waited, sensing the importance of what was being communicated. You saved me, Jay. Not just from physical confinement, but from the despair that was consuming my soul. You gave me hope when I had none, trust when I deserved only suspicion, and friendship when I was certain I would die alone. Kethvar. In the language of my people, you would be called Thakmor, the one who guides lost souls home. But there is a phrase in your language that I have learned, one that captures what I feel. Jay felt tears forming in his eyes as he realized what was coming. Thank you, Father Boss, Kethvar said, the mental voice warm with affection and gratitude. Thank you for bringing me home. Father Boss. Jay laughed through his tears. Where did you learn that phrase? Dr. Park explained it to me. He said it was a term of respect and affection that humans sometimes use for those who guide and protect them. It seemed appropriate. Jay stood and walked to the transparent wall that separated them, placing his palm against the surface. Kethvar approached from the other side, his massive hand covering Jay's completely. Thank you too, old friend, Jay said softly. Thank you for trusting me, and for showing me that the universe is far more wonderful than I ever imagined. As the months passed, more humans arrived at the station to work with Kethvar. The ancient being's knowledge helped solve energy crises, improved space travel efficiency, and even led to medical breakthroughs that saved countless lives. But more than that, the partnership between humans and the last Eternal Wanderer became a symbol of hope for the galaxy. Other species began to take notice. The Vorak Council, initially skeptical, sent representatives to observe the collaboration. Even some Zelini warriors, curious about the strange alliance, visited the station. While they still couldn't approach Kethvar directly without experiencing fear, they could see the positive results of the partnership. It is strange, Kethvar commented to Jay one day as they watched a group of Vorak scientists reviewing their latest energy research. For so long, I believed I was cursed to be alone. Now I find myself at the center of something that may change how species interact throughout the galaxy. You're not alone anymore, Jay replied. You never will be again. No, Kethvar agreed, and Jay could feel the contentment in the ancient being's thoughts. I have found my family among the stars. I have found my home. A year after Kethvar's arrival at the research station, Jay received a promotion to Director of Interspecies Relations, a position created specifically to handle the growing number of collaborative projects between humans and other species. The success of the Kethvar integration had opened doors that had been closed for generations. But despite his new responsibilities, Jay still spent time each day with his old friend. They would sit together in the observation lounge, watching the stars and sharing stories of the worlds they had seen and the worlds they hoped to visit together. Do you ever regret it? Jay asked one evening as they watched Earth rotating slowly below them. Leaving your old life behind? My old life was no life at all, Kethvar replied. It was merely existence, survival without purpose or joy. This is what my people always believed life should be. Connection, growth, the sharing of knowledge and friendship across the vast emptiness of space. Jay smiled, remembering the frightened, desperate creature he had first encountered in that containment cell. That being seemed like a distant memory now, replaced by the wise, gentle giant who had become not just humanity's ally, but its teacher and friend. Jay, Kethvar said suddenly, his mental voice taking on a more serious tone. Yes. I have been thinking about the future. About what happens when I am gone. You're not going anywhere, Jay said firmly. Your species lives for millennia. You'll outlive all of us. Perhaps. But I am the last of my kind. When I die, the knowledge of the eternal wanderers dies with me. Unless. Jay felt a strange stirring in his mind, as if Kethvar was sharing something profound. Unless what? Unless I can find a way to pass on not just my knowledge, but my essence. My people believed that consciousness, once formed, could never truly be destroyed, only transformed. I have been studying human neural patterns, and I believe it might be possible to create a bridge between our minds that would survive even death. You mean? Jay's eyes widened as he understood the implication. Yes. Not just translation or communication, but true unity. A human mind expanded to encompass the memories and wisdom of an entire species. It would be unprecedented, and it might not work at all. But if it did, the eternal wanderers wouldn't truly be extinct, Jay finished. Exactly. But I would only attempt such a thing with someone I trusted completely. Someone who had already proven their ability to bridge our species. Jay looked at his friend, this ancient being who had somehow become the most important person in his life. You're asking if I would be willing to try. I am asking if you would be willing to become something more than human, to carry forward the legacy of two species instead of one. It would be a tremendous responsibility, and there would be risks we cannot yet calculate. Jay thought about everything that had brought them to this moment, the fear and suspicion that had initially surrounded Kethvar, the breakthrough in communication, the gradual building of trust and friendship. He thought about the knowledge they had already shared, the lives they had improved, the barriers they had broken down between species. When do we start? Jay asked. You would be willing? Of course. We're family, remember? And family takes care of each other. Jay could feel the warmth of Kethvar's gratitude washing over him like a gentle tide. Thank you, my friend. Thank you for ensuring that the light of the eternal wanderers will never truly fade. As they sat together watching the stars, Jay realized that his simple assignment to observe a dangerous creature had become something far greater than he had ever imagined. He had become the bridge between two worlds, the keeper of ancient wisdom, and the promise of a future where understanding could triumph over fear. The universe was vast and full of wonders, but Jay knew that no matter how far they traveled or what discoveries lay ahead, he would never be alone. He had found his place among the stars, guided by the friendship of the last eternal wanderer and the hope of what they might accomplish together. Thank you, Father Boss, came Kethvar's gentle voice in his mind. Thank you for bringing me home. Thank you too, old friend, Jay whispered. Thank you for showing me that home isn't a place, it's the people who choose to share the journey with you. The end.